Hello and welcome to an episode of the Weekly Dartscast. Alex Moss here, back with another episode in our Darts Legends series, this time joined by a player who was nominated by Bobby George for this series. You may know him as the Man in Black, the Ton Machine. He's a former World Championship semi-finalist, former runner-up in the News of the World, and one of the first players to turn professional in darts. Here's our chat with Alan Glazier.
I started playing in 1969. I won the singles at the Twickenham-Hampton Darts League in that year. And then I got an invite to go and play for Slough Super League in London in 1970. And then I played with a player called Tommy Barrett. Do you remember him? He won the News of the World in 1964 and 65. Won it 2 years on the trot. Anyway, he was in our team and he gave me the inspiration to try and do a bit better, you know. Anyway, going on from there, I was running up in the British Open in 1974. Alan Evans beat me in the final in London. There was two hotels. One had 500 people in, the other one had 500 people in. And we got to the last 8 in each hotel, and then we played to the finals in London. And then the indoor league came up, and I got to the semi-final twice, both of them. They only run it for 2 years, and that was in Leeds. And I played a bloke called Conrad Dangles. He was an American, and he took 5 minutes to throw 3 darts. He was a bloody character, that one. Anyway, that one, right. And then I lost to Leighton Reese in the semi-final, the other one. Going back a bit now. Then I put an advert in Darts World for exhibitions, you know, to go in a pub or something and play darts. And my first one come up. Well, I got 2 nights in Birmingham at 25 quid a night. So I got 50 quid for that. And then it bombed on from there, and I kept getting loads of bookings. It's unbelievable. And that went on for a few years, well, all the rest of my career, really, doing exhibitions. I was doing exhibitions more than I was doing tournaments. So I was on the road for bloody 6 days a week. It's unbelievable. And then in 1977, I won the 3 Opens in America. I won the Santa Monica, North American, and the Connecticut. And I was the player of the tournament twice. And I won 10 other trophies as well, with playing pairs and fours and whatever. That was a brilliant year. You know, that tournament was brilliant for me. Then in 1980, I won the LV. I beat Bobby in the final at Jolly's in Stoke. And I won the Swedish Open that year as well. And then in 1980, I won the Spanish Open twice on the top, 1980 and 81. And I've stayed in the top 8 in the world for 20 years. As long as I've got in the last 8, I've got an invite back each year, you see. That's the main thing, anyway. In 1986, Eric beat me in the semi-final, bloody 5-3, and that was, I should have beaten him that year. That was my bloody year, that one. Anyway, not to worry. In 1989, I won the Jersey Open, and that was the last one I played. I played for England 27 times. I got 27 caps for England over the years. I got picked for Great Britain to play in America, in New York, in 1977. The team went over, and that was hilarious. And then over 6 years, I played 6 county teams. I played for London, Surrey, Bedfordshire, Durham, Derbyshire and Lancashire over the years. It was over 35 years of different counties. But I'd sponsored all over the country, you know, sort of breweries, and Matthew Brown, and that was in Blackburn, and I had Green King and Young's in London. You know, I was doing shows for them, plus all my own ones. Oh, yeah. Anyway, I broke my shoulder in bloody 2005. That was 35 years of bloody darts. So. Anyway, then I've got some sponsors. I was sponsored by Winmore for 30 years. I was playing for them. Pringle of Scotland, and Alcadart for 2 years, which was a small dart company when I first started. And then obviously I just told you, in 1977, Marlboro gave me a ring and said, will you come and do some jobs for me? Marlboro cigarette company. Anyway, I started doing that. I've done loads of shows for them, up and down around the country again. And then they had a Marlborough Open, and I was the main player. I didn't play in the tournament, but I had to play the last 8, double or nothing. And Cliff Lazarenko won the tournament, but I beat him in the final. He was a bit sick about that. Anyway, I saved the company about $4,000. I won all 8. That was good. And then formed a team of champions. Myself, I picked some players. I had Brad Smith, Tony Brown, and Leighton Reese. Because Bobby was playing for Embassy at the time, and it was an issue with Marlborough, so he couldn't do it. Anyway, I've done 10 shows as a pro for Bullseye, and I've done it 4 times out of the 10. Broke the thing about 300. I was probably I was the best left-hander for 20 years. Well, I was number one left-hander. I was always in the top 4, 5, 6 or something in the world. But anyway, let's have a look here. And they called me the legend. I don't know why. That was me love for darts anyway, and I've done it all. And I always played in black. And I was the only one in black, but all the time, all different colours, in shirts and whatever. But now everybody's playing in bloody black. It's unbelievable.
Well, in the 1970s, that was the sort of time when darts was gaining in popularity, and you were one of the first players to really think about turning professional.
I think, out of that. I was the first professional because I started doing exhibitions. Nobody else did. I know Barry Trumlow played for Unicorn when he won the News of the World, but it was just working for Unicorn. But I was on the road, if you understand what I mean, earning my own out of my pocket, whatever. That's how it all began. But I was getting 25 quid a night exhibitions when I first started, but obviously it went up as I went along. I went for Birmingham, and it was only a $5 petrol then, there and back. I can't believe that. Now it's probably 100 quid.
How tough a decision was that to make, to have a go at being professional? Because obviously you're working at the time, you've got a job, and no one else has done what you've done, being a darts professional.
Yeah, the thing is, when the tournaments come up, like the Embassy, I might be working on a Friday night somewhere, like in Norwich or something. I've got to get across to London. Then I was playing Saturday night in the Embassy. But the thing is, I was getting 300 quid a night. So it's a lot of money, isn't it, to turn down if someone wanted to book me. It's a bit awkward sometimes. Speaking
of the Embassy, you played in the very first one, 1978, and you were one of the first games on that first day. What are your memories really of the build-up to that tournament? Because obviously there'd never been a world championship before, and you were one of the players that were going to be playing in it.
Oh, it's brilliant, unbelievable. Oh, it was brilliant, that old Bobby. Unbelievable. Good old days.
What do you remember about? Because that obviously wasn't at Lakeside then, was it? It was at Nottingham, the heart of the Midlands club, the very first one.
Well, the first one, what was that? Leighton Reese one. He won the first one, didn't he? He won the first. But I was in that, and I got beat earlier on. But I got to the last 8 anyway. But that was the main thing. And I got an invite back for the following year. So it went on.
You mentioned as well about the News of the World getting to the final of that 1979. That at the time was a huge tournament, and we spoke to Bobby George recently for this series that we're doing, and he was the one that suggested we have a chat with you. But just how big of a tournament was the News of the World back then?
Yeah, it's brilliant. But the thing was, if Bobby beat me in the final, fair enough, but it's bloody hard. That half tournament, it's the hardest tournament I've ever played it. But he beat me in the final, fair enough. He played quite well, actually. I didn't play as good as I did in the other 3 games I played. But that's the way it goes, And he played absolutely fantastic. And what the problem was that the BDO decided to deduct the News of the World from world ranking points. Bobby lost 8 points, and I got runner-up, so it was 6. And they didn't put him in for us. And Bobby would have gone to number 1, I would have gone to number 3 or something, It's just crazy. And that was the first time they've ever done that, because they used to put it in for the world ranking points.
You mentioned that actually when I said that we organised a chat with you. You said talk about the controversy of the News of the World ranking points.
Yeah, well, see, the thing is, you get world ranking points. Like Swedish, I got 8. LV, I got 8. Different tournaments I was in. Spanish, I got 8. And Jersey, I didn't get anything because it's just private one that was. Over the years, if you get into the semi-final of a tournament or anything, you get your points. If you get 16 points, you get the last 16, you get a point, 8, 2, as it went on, up to 8. So I managed to get in sort of the tournaments, get into the last 8 or whatever. And that's how you get your points to get into the England squad.
Yeah, I was going to talk about the England squad. You made loads of appearances for England in the 70s and 80s. How special a moment was it, though, the very first time putting on that England shirt and representing your country?
Oh, it's brilliant. Oh, something out of this world, playing against Wales and whatever, and Scotland, because it's the home counties thing more. You play in Scotland or Wales and then England, so it went each year, different years. And we had one game against America in London, and that was something else. That they came over from America, and then after we played them in Great Britain, in New York, they returned the thing. It was fantastic. I
want to touch on America as well. You mentioned earlier about that great year that you had, winning loads of tournaments one summer in America, but speaking to a lot of players from back during that time, how big was America for darts? Because obviously at the moment the PDC are trying to tap into that market again with steel tip darts, but back then it just seemed like it was a huge country for darts.
I thought America would take over from us, at one point, because they were dead keen, and all of a sudden they've dropped away slightly now. They don't have any. Might have 2 or 3 good players, but they used to have quite a few. It's just, when I won the American Open, I played on Queen Mary. There was 3 tiers of dance floors, and we played on 3 tiers in the ship and at Long Beach. But now there's nothing. I don't think they do it. They do American Open in Las Vegas, don't they? I think they do still. Yeah, PDC one. BDO don't do one or anything like that. It's just the PDC players.
One of the players we've spoke to already, John Lowe, when we mentioned we were going to have a chat with you, he said that you were the best left-hander of his generation, very nice guy, and he wanted to bring up that when you won the North American Open, you wanted to take the trophy home. It was about 5 foot tall, and he can't remember what happened.
John's all right. Well, me and John, we always got on, but he was another good player. He won the MC, as you know, but he was a very good player. But he came after me late on in the year. I was sort of done. Well, Bobby was 1976 when he turned up, but I was like 70s. So there's 6 years difference. And John Lowe was about the same, I think, 6 years after me. So I was sort of more involved for the first 6 years than they were, if you understand what I mean. They come later on. Eric Bristow later on as well.
Another player we spoke to, Keith Dellery, he mentioned free in the Polo Mint. What does that mean?
Oh, yeah, I've done that for some newspaper. And it was a gimmick, Dave Lanning organised it. He was part of the BDO then. And he said, right, we do something. Everybody can, it's just a gimmick. Anyway, I started to get a dart in polo without breaking it. So they put a bit of blue tack behind the polo, stuck it to the centre of the bullseye, and a guy from actually Rochdale won it where I live. He won the gold polo, 24 carat polo, but all these polo mints were smashed all over the bars everywhere. And then I wrote to Roundtree, see if we do it again, sort of a thing. He said, well, they're for eating, not for throwing missiles at. I thought, oh, God. But the amount of polos that people bought that year, I think they should have said, yeah, go ahead with it.
One other we spoke to, Bob Anderson, he said to bring up porcelain pigeons in Finland in the early 1980s.
Yeah, Bob Anderson, brilliant. My mate as well. He lives in Somerset now, I think. He moved down there. Yeah, good old days. And we went to Finland, me and Bob, and we got played in the Open. I got last 8, he got last 4 or something. But it's hard work that, because we arrived Friday and played Saturday morning and coming home Sunday. Anyway, we decided to not get the coach back. We got the tram into Finland town centre, and we had a few beers and that, and just the 2 of us, and real great. That's how we were. We didn't argue about it. No rows or anything. It's just, if you lose, you lose. You win, you win. That's how I see it. We never argued or anything. Not once. players. Never did.
Yeah, we can tell when people look back and watch games nowadays. It was competitive on the hockey, but off the hockey there seemed to be a great camaraderie between you and the players and everyone. Really, it was like came across like a big family in some ways.
It's different today. I don't know why. I look at it and they're not happy up there. I know they're playing for a lot of money now. You know, I mean that's the problem. You know, not saying it's a problem, but when we played, it was more bit of fun, bit of this chat. Play your darts, win or lose, bump, off the stage, shake hands, bump, go for a pint. Do you know what I mean? But now they don't do that. It's strange. I used to stand outside signing autographs when I played for England. Didn't bother me, you know. But now these guys, they don't go in the audience or anything. They're off. They go home or whatever. I used to stay all week if I got beat. But they're away. Don't see them. I went to Blackpool 2 years ago. And I went for the semis and the final. I got an invite to go anywhere I went. And, there's only the 2 players left. Nobody else they're all gone. I went back home after they got beat. They just don't hang around and see the fan is someone they need. And they've got to be a little bit more respected, you know, signing autographs and things like that. Just to go out and say hello. That's what I did anyway.
One of the tournaments I wanted to bring up as well was that 1986 World Championship, the first one that was actually held at Lakeside, and what a run that you had getting to the semi-finals. And you mentioned earlier just losing out to Eric Bristow in the end, but what are your memories of that run?
I played, I had 3 hard games before Eric. Played the Australian, one of the Australians, then I played Keith Deller. I beat him because he won it in 83 and I beat him in 86. So I thought, this is not bad. Then I played Kerry O'Day from Australia, and then I got Eric. But the night before I was 3-0 up against Kerry O'Day, and then I won 4-3 in the end. But God, I finished at 1 o'clock in the morning, and then I was playing Eric the next day, but my arm was killing me. Anyway, gradually wore off, but I was 3-0 down against Eric, and I fought back, but I thought that was going to be my year, that one. Never mind.
Great run to get to the semi-finals, but after that we only see you playing in one more of the Embassy World Championships, 1987. We see you play a few more World Masters, a few more tournaments after that, but in terms of playing darts on TV, we don't really see too much of you.
No, I've kept going with the exhibitions, and that was 20 years then. And I'm thinking, and I was doing the shows up and down the country, for the breweries, for myself. In the end, I became an entertainer more than a killer. I used to be a killer at darts, but then it wore off. When you go and do a show, you've got to entertain people, do silly things like cover the dartboard up with a newspaper, ask them to give you a treble, got to throw out that treble and just rip the newspaper off, and once he said treble 17, and I got 5 darts in there. I threw 6 darts when I covered the dartboard up with the newspaper. But it's just gimmicks, like putting an apple on someone's head and taking the dart out and throwing the cane. And it's, they think it's a bloody dart. It's unbelievable. It's a bit of fun.
Yeah, obviously the exhibitions was a huge part of your career, and we see it nowadays. The exhibitions is still a big part of darts. People love to go and meet the players and watch the players and get up close and personal. Yeah.
But as I say, you get involved with so many people. It's unbelievable, crazy. But I thoroughly enjoyed what I've done over the 35 years, I can assure you. And it's been just out of this world. It took over my life, really, playing back darts. But, I've played for these counties, different counties, but it's where I moved to London. Well, I lived in London, but I moved to Lancashire. I had a flat. I rented a flat in Blackpool so that I could do the jobs around the North East, and then don't have to travel so far. It's really hard.
What about darts nowadays? Are you a close follower of darts on TV? Do you still play much at all?
I don't play at all now because I broke my shoulder, and it really hurts me to play. So I'm 81 now, so I don't. I'll go and watch. I'll still go out on a Thursday night and sit with the lads, whatever. I don't play much, but just locally anyway, not. And that's it really. ladder. Never mind. That was 2005. I broke my shoulder, and that took me 3 years to get back to normal. But that's part of me, that's the life I've used and lived. And
as I mentioned earlier, John Lowe calling you the best left-hander of his generation. Nowadays, of course, we've got the likes of James Wade, Mark Webster, who's a former world champion. But for you to be classed as one of the best left-handers, how proud are you to have that be spoken about?
It's unbelievable. That's one of my best favourite things, that being number one for so many years. I know these two are playing quite well, but I think I could have, handled that in my own time, eating those years, going back. I think I could have beaten them anyway. That's how I feel. Because I remember playing, going back to the American Open, I played in the mixed pairs with this girl, right? She'd never thrown a dart in her life before. Anyway, we started off, I went bang, 180, right? And every leg, I hit 180, all right, and then 140. And we ended up winning it. I could not believe that one. She was getting 26-9. You imagine that, can't you? Oh, my God, how we won that, I'll never know. Anyway, that's one of the tournaments. Oh, dear.
What about in terms of, we're finishing up all our Legends interviews that we do by asking the players a couple of things. The first one being the future of darts. Obviously, it's difficult really to assess things with the virus that we've got going around at the moment. But in terms of darts for the future, where do you see the future of the game?
Oh, it's terrible, this virus, isn't it, eh? I've been out for 5 weeks, 6 weeks now. Terrible. Anyway, they're putting, Phil Taylor's playing that Japanese girl next week, and on Thursday. It's they're doing a thing in whatever they do over, not going there, but they're doing it over internet, whatever. But that's it. And there's games on now, but even they're playing a few games like that now, aren't they? They're playing from somewhere. They're not playing with an audience. They're just playing one another. And it's all changed.
Do you think that's down to you touched on it earlier? Do you think it's down to the amount of money that there is in the game now? There's a huge amount of money up for grabs in the PDC.
I know. Oh God, it's unbelievable. I can't believe it. How it's gone from when I got into the British Open, I got 300 quid, and Alan Emmons got 600. But now it's like, if I got up on that, it's 50 grand. That's how you look at it. I mean, I think I've been at runner-up in every tournament in the world, roughly, or semi-finalists, over the years. And it's just amazing how there I got like 100 quid or 200 quid, but now it's like 25 grand, 30, 50, whatever, 100 grand, 500 grand to a winner, PDC thing. It's just gone berserk, isn't it?
The last one I was going to ask you is, what's your favourite moment in darts? When someone asks you, what's the one that comes up to your head straight away, your favourite moment in darts?
Well, I think the American thing, on Queen Mary and that, and it was really great. That was something else. And, I like the News of the World. First time I got to the final, even to get to a final like the News of the World, something else. There's a lot of bloody good players around. You know what I mean? So really, all that and the England Cats, I love them. I'm proud to be part of the BDO all those years, and it's fantastic. And I'd like to thank Winmore for sponsoring me all those years, 30 years with them, and they paid for me trips and everything wherever I wanted to go abroad. It's fantastic, and I can't knock anything. It's just fantastic. 35 years of my life, and it's been brilliant and really fantastic.
Thanks again to Alan for joining us. So we're up to 10 now in our Darts Legends series. We've got a couple more lined up for you over the next couple of Mondays. Next week we'll be joined by Dennis Priestley, and the following week you'll be hearing from Roland Shelton. So they're coming up on the Legends series. We'll be back on Thursday. Myself and Burton DeWitt, we're going to be recording early this week and bringing you a new regular episode on Thursday with a few guests. So look forward to that. Thanks everyone for listening, and until then, hang tight.